Hello. So this video is a performance review of Stefanie Austin's The Final Rose, performed by Sock Buskin Theatre Company. As many of you may know from previous videos, I actually work with Sock Buskin, but it's always a treat to see a performance, particularly one that I haven't been involved in, because you get to see the kinds of artistic choices that people make while also having that sort of familiarity. So a lot of the actors in this production I know and have worked with before. Stefanie Austin played Rebecca Cook. David Smith played Wes Gold. Sella Plummer, I haven't worked with her before, but I've seen her in other productions. She played Kelly Dixon. So I know a number of the people who are in this show. Directed by Henry Morello, this production, by the way. So The Final Rose is... Oh, also, full disclosure, I was involved in the a sort of late stage editing read-through of this script. So I actually knew the plot, though there were some changes from the draft that I had seen to what was actually put on stage. So the final product was actually stronger than the draft that I read. So Stefanie clearly took the feedback that we gave her at that read-through. Anyway, not crucial. So the plot of The Final Rose. This is a murder mystery comedy, which is very standard for Sock and Buskin. It's a big thing that we do, particularly plays written by Stefanie and by Kari Williamson, another one of the board members of Sock and Buskin. The Final Rose is set at a bachelor-style dating show in which the final episode of season 10 of The Catch, in which Brad Masters, The Catch, the bachelor character on this TV show, basically, he has to choose between Kelly Dixon and Miranda Carter. Kelly is a sort of Southern girl next door type. Miranda is a more sort of upscale, slightly snobbish socialite type. And he has to choose between them. The problem that Wes has, or that Brad has, is that he doesn't love either of them. And that wouldn't necessarily be such a problem. He could, go through with it, fulfill the contract, do what he's required by the show to do, if he didn't love the production manager, Rebecca Cook, and she loves him. She, for her part, can't really come around to sort of fully accepting a relationship with him because it would destroy her career, which she's worked really hard to build up. And it would almost certainly mean that he would be sued by the show for violating his contract. So that's thrown a wrench into things. At the same time, the host of the show, Wes Gold, is having an affair with Miranda, one of the contestants, which is also, kind of against the rules and creates a major problem. He also hits on Colleen Masters, Brad's mom, so that's a bit more uncomfortable. And he does all of this between eating copious amounts of peanut butter and peanut butter sandwiches. While that secondary storyline is going on, Carrie Reynolds, who is the assistant to Rebecca, is continually finding these notes threatening to blow up the studio. So she's super concerned about that. She's trying to get production stopped because there's threats to blow up the studio and she doesn't want to die. which seems like quite a reasonable stance to take, but the police and the network security and everybody says the threats aren't credible, and so things can keep going. When Miranda turns up murdered, the detective, Robin, and her daughter, Olivia, because it was Take Your Daughter to Work Day, the detective, Robin, turns to the audience to help interrogate the suspects. And so during the sort of interval, the actors, or characters, I guess, more accurately, came around to the different tables, because this is a dinner theater type setup, and we could ask the characters questions about their movements, about potential motives, about whether or not they murdered Miranda, etc., etc. So, and the actors had to stay in character to answer these questions. So I'm not going to give away who the actual murderer is. You can buy the rights to the final rose through Stefanie's production company, Knock 'em Dead Scripts, I think, Knock 'em Dead Productions. I forget exactly which one it is. Anyway, no, I'm not gonna spoil the ending. But it's one of those things where one of the things I like about community theater is getting to see the same actors doing different roles and seeing how they approach their different roles. So again, people like Stefanie, like Sella, like Richard, J. Lance Wilkinson, who I'll talk more about in just a little bit. Getting to see these people do multiple shows was really interesting. Particularly since they're all fantastic actors. The performances across the board were really, really good. I expect nothing less from the people that I've seen before. But I was also impressed by some of the people that I hadn't seen in previous Sock Buskin productions. Jace Beaton, for instance, who played Carrie, really, really good. Really, really a great fit for that part. So Carrie actually is one of my favorite characters in the play. Carrie is this sort of Daria type character, sarcastic, critical, very intelligent, somewhat sinister. She continually jokes about poisoning Wes Gold for his embrace of these sort of toxic masculinity tropes and his casual sexism, his sort of demeaning of those who work for him, not really for him, but the people who work on the show who are not him, the host. So I think Carrie is really, really interesting. She reads Frankenstein on stage. I actually asked Carrie what she was reading when she came around to our table. And Jace did a fantastic job. It was a great part for them. They were really, really good in this sort of snide, sarcastic, charmingly sinister way. And I was really, really impressed. The other new person who I was impressed by, or I guess more interested in his take on the character, was Connor Heimerman, who played Brad. Because, Brad is supposed to he's the main love interest, right? He's the one that all of the women in the show want. Even Carrie, who basically doesn't like men at all, says that Brad is okay. But I mean, Kelly and Miranda are obviously in a position of competing over him in the context of the show. Rebecca is in love with him. Colleen, his mom, has this sort of weird, she's a little too sort of, but Connor's Brad was not this like suave, charming, dashing. I don't want to like say, I don't want to say this in a way that that's insulting to him, because it's not meant to be. But he wasn't this like, he wasn't the kind of person that I would typically picture on a dating show in the role of the Bachelor. Like he wasn't this sort of like suave, self-confident, arrogant type guy. He was much more reflective, much more critical, much more considerate. And I think Connor really did a good job bringing those characteristics to the forefront, which is actually quite important in making Brad a likable character, right? Because if he was that sort of shallow, dude bro type figure that's more sort of stereotypical of these types of shows, we wouldn't necessarily want him and Rebecca to end up together. That wouldn't necessarily feel like a happy ending, because he would be such an unlikable, shallow character. But the fact that he isn't that, and that Connor really brought that ambiguity, that complexity, that sort of that difficulty this character experiences to the performance, I think worked really, really well. That being said, I would be incredibly remiss in talking about excellent performances if I didn't talk about J. Lance Wilkinson's Bob. So Bob is a really interesting character, and I've seen J. Lance Wilkinson in things before. He's always fantastic. He's a great actor. Bob is an interesting character because from just reading the script, Bob's not there. Bob has no lines in the whole show. Bob never speaks. And so from reading the script, Bob is just not an important character. He's not even somebody you would even remember was in the show. But on stage, he was so good. He continually sort of mimed surprise when characters like turned around and he was there, or confusion when he was given Miranda's statue. There's a whole bit with a statue with her bust, which is a nice double entendre. There you go, fun. But like when Bob is given this statue, like he does not know what to do with it, and there was a minute where it was just him on stage with this statue, trying to like figure out what to do with it, and then like carefully putting it down and like walking away from it. And it was just so good. He was so impressive without any lines to support him. It was really, really good. He was clearly the surprise star of the show, to the point that like he personally got cheered by people. Like there's a point late in the show where Carrie just gives this tirade about how the whole show, the catch, is misogynist and encourages women to internalize negative anti-feminist stereotypes, etc., etc. And during her speech, like there's a break in her speech, and Bob just stands up and just starts applauding wildly, and everybody joined him. And he got these cheers like, yeah, Bob, you tell him. And all of the other cast members were like looking at him like, what are you doing? And it was this great moment. It was incredibly funny. It's such an amazing performance for, again, a character who has no actual dialogue in the show. Really, really impressive.